morning, Nigeria, and welcome to Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. I am Ayubela. Thank God it's Friday, and you're welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank God it's Friday. Good morning, Nigeria. Welcome to Daybreak on Trust Television, reaching you live from our studios here in the nation's capital city, Abuja. Thank God it's Friday, just as you mentioned.
Thank God it's Friday. And today is the third day of December. Quite a lot is changing, of course, as it is the usual practice. By the end of the year, a lot of travels here and there, and a lot of stories about inflation. Yesterday I was seeing booking tickets from, I think it was Lagos to Asaba, about 100,000 naira.
And there was quite a lot of cancellation of flights as well. I don't know if you got to see that as well, because a lot of people were complaining that they booked tickets and the flights were also cancelled simultaneously. And people were really, worried about that, as the festive period is just around the corner. And
a lot of uncertainty in the air as well, coming with the Omicron variant of the COVID-19 pandemic. We are already seeing a drop in the price of crude oil globally to about $70 per barrel, which is showing a negative because, if we have this kind of panic, just like we had it the first time COVID came, then it's going to be a big problem, especially for countries like Nigeria that rely heavily, on exporting
and
crude oil.
we a lot of economies, are still struggling to come out of, the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic. And with this coming on, experts are saying it's going to be quite disastrous.
Yes, and I hope that it's not going to reverse all the gains that have been realized in the past 2 years now, I believe. Yes, a lot of vaccines, have been developed, and but with this Omicron, we are even hearing that manufacturers are saying, look, these vaccines that we've already developed may be ineffective, considering the variants,
I really hope it's not so, because I took mine and it was not really funny, and people, getting people to actually take this COVID-19 vaccine was really a serious battle. I don't know how it's going to be for the Omicron one, if we really have to develop another vaccine for that.
Well, I hope that, let's not panic. Let's not, put fear into people. If you haven't taken the vaccine, still take the vaccine. At least it gives you some level of efficiency, some level of guarantee, rather than not taking completely.
At all.
So, yes, it's very important. Well, today on the show, we will be looking at, International Day of Persons with Disability. And we'll be joined by Ms. Tracy Onabis, Disability Inclusion Officer from Inclusive Friends Association, to talk to us about the significance of this day. And we will also be talking about a demolition exercise that has gone bad. A victim of, I don't know what to call it, whether assault, who was shot, allegedly by security officials. He'll be joining us later on the show to talk about, his experience. And of course, as usual, we'll be taking a look at the dailies on Daybreak. But before all of that, the first thing is to take a look at today in history. You know what they say, those who do not know history are doomed to repeat it. And so it's very important for us to have, our minds on what transpired before us. Take a look.
quite a number of interesting events, that happened, in history. But the one that actually caught my attention is the one about the first, heart transplant that happened in South Africa. That many would say that was quite a remarkable, discovery, isn't it?
Yes, very, very. And, you also recall that we also have in 1689 the separation of conjoined twins. I mean, all of this goes to show you how science has evolved over the years, how medicine, practice of medicine and all of that has evolved, and people able to do things, heart transplant, kidney transplant, and all of these scientific things that, sometimes I really imagine, how do they do these things and the person gets to live?
Exactly. The issue about conjoined twins, people were really skeptical that many had to move, these operations abroad. But it was really nice when we heard there's one that happened in Yola, FMC Yola. And it was a remarkable event. There was a lot of celebration because it was successful and the babies were fine. And it was quite an interesting, event that happened for us down here in Nigeria.
Yeah. Well, the world will keep advancing. I hope that Nigeria will not be left behind. We'll continue to catch up, with advancement as far as science and technology is concerned. Now, we'll be looking at the dailies on Daybreak, and we have in the studio Omonu Nelson to review the stories that made the headlines this morning. First, let's take this breather.
But in a situation where you find that a person look like the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that.
All right, thank you for staying with us. And if you're just joining, you're watching Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. We'll be taking a look at the Daily Trust newspaper, which is the first we'll be looking at this morning. The first story there talks about court to DSS, give Kanu maximum comfort in detention. That's on page 4 of Daily Trust newspaper. The next story there, police arrest 13 as thugs attack Barrow's campaign office in Kanu. Pictures of that went viral on social media yesterday. Of course, as 2023 draw closer, you begin to see all of these kind of dramas. The lead story on the Daily Trust newspaper says, Omicron, crude oil drops below $70 per barrel as travel ban threats recovery. Restrictions will affect Nigeria's economy. That's according to experts. And then the next one says aviation sector at risk. That's IATA. You would also see the picture of there showing you President Muhammadu Buhari receiving a briefing from the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Onyema, the Nigerian ambassador to UAE, Mohammed and Santa Rimi, and then the National Security Advisor, Babagana Mongunu, and then, of course, the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Otumba Adeni, at the Expo 2020 in Dubai yesterday. Also below that, 2020 NPC plans e-census in security risk areas. You will find that on page 6. Also at the very bottom, Na Abba to Buhari endorsed direct primaries. Why I built Al-Majri schools, the former President Goodluck Jonathan. Kaduna to sack, prosecute 233 teachers working with fake certificates. Well, that's alarming. Someone will say, what's it with Erufai and teachers? for crying out loud. I mean, but it just goes to show that the state is committed to making sure that children get the best of education, no matter what happens. Recall the massive sack, of teachers in the state as a result of their failure to pass the very exams in which they give students to write and all of that. So, I would say it's commendable. I mean, it's going to be painful, it's going to be hard, but the right things has to be done. Right. Someone has to take the tough decisions. Right. And it's good that the governor is taking the pain and is willing to carry the cross and the burden that comes with taking the unpopular decisions. Well, let's take a look at other stories.
Okay, let's take a look at the stories on the Punch newspaper this morning. On page 22 of the Punch, you'd find airport concession. ICRC completes evaluation of buy coordinate 12 local foreign firms. You'd still find on page 22 5G auction. Glow missing as NCC qualifies MTN, Airtel, and another new firm. You'd also find on page 21 Borno, Osun, Kogi lead dirtiest states, clean up Nigeria. And on page 7, you'd see reps invite INEC over funding challenge for direct primaries. And the Punch newspaper is leading with the story Omicron. States resume testing. Demand funds. Variant spreads to 23 countries. One of the writers states vaccine hesitancy. Funding of molecular labs, major challenges. That's according to Cross River State. And the other rider states low vaccination drive in Nigeria's rural areas feeling transmission, says World Health Organization. So these are some of the major stories on the Punch newspaper this morning.
All right, let's take a look at the Nation newspaper. There you would see the first story. It talks about ex-Senate President Wayas dies at age 80. And that's a sad one there. LASU students, activists to join Sanwo-Olu in peace walk. So recall that there was this reactions that trailed the invitation of the governor to be joined for a peace walk with respect to the white paper that was released by the committee on the hashtag #EndSARS. Also, you'd find other stories. 10 months after, Emirates Airlines returned to Nigeria's sky. Well, that's you can pick a copy and get the details of that. Judge to Kanu's lawyer, stop writing me directly. All right. Below that, federal government inaugurates 40.27 kilometers Enugu-Ebonyi Road. The lead story also talks about pressure on Buhari to reject electoral amendment bill. INEC yet to act on Buhari's request. Governors insist on indirect primary. December 19 deadline for president to sign. CSO's assent will aid electoral reforms. You'd also see Nigerian investors lose 553 billion naira in 4 months. Sell pressure stokes anxiety. You also see why census should hold before 2023 general elections by Nigeria Population Commission. Budget timelines submitted to government. So very interesting. Recall that I think about a week ago, we had a commissioner from the NPC in the studio here, where he talked about the plans of the NPC to embark on a census. It's more than almost 20 years since we had the last census. I mean, in 2006. 2006. Yes.
Yes, that was the last census we had.
So that's a long time ago, for heaven's sake. Well, let's take a look at other stories.
Okay, let's look into the Guardian newspaper this morning. The lead story there, 31 million PLWDs suffer as 23 states neglect disability rights. That's quite interesting because this issue, we're going to be discussing this issue with a guest later who will be coming from the Inclusive Friends Association, to take a look at disability rights, and the conversations around that topic. Now, one of the riders, MDAs, yet to implement Buhari's directive 3 years after disability law passage. You'd also find government, private sector charged to promote disability inclusion. Nigeria ranks 9th, needs $1.1 billion for humanitarian assistance in 2022. You'd also find on The Guardian, court reschedules Nnamdi Kanu's trial for January 18th, 2022. Kanu, police arrest 13 suspects for alleged attack on senator's campaign office. You'd also see on page 7 of The Guardian newspaper, EFCC rearraigns Fayose others over alleged money laundering. These are some of the major stories on The Guardian newspaper this morning.
All right, now let's take a look at the This Day newspaper, and where you have a number of stories there. The first one at the very top says, finally, Emirates reinstates Nigeria-Dubai route, commences flight December 5. And then you see Nembe oil spill leaking wellhead to be contained in few days, says ITO. Also, the lead story on This Day talks about, it says, despite emergency oil releases, Omicron fears OPEC sticks to 400,000 barrels per day supply hike. The rider, Nigeria gets 1.683 million barrels per day, January quota. Also, you'd find receives December 17th deadline to submit compliance plan. LASU students, activists to join Sanwo-Olu in Lagos Peace Walk. You would also see the president there in Dubai, where he went to attend an expo. You would see also how Indians rule global technology companies. These are some of the stories on This Day. For details, you can pick a copy of that. Well, that's that for the papers that we have today. We told you we have Omonu Nelson in the studio to review the papers with us. Good morning again. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to the program.
Now, already there's a scare in the air, like we are seeing on some of the stories here. The Daily Trust leads with a story about a drop in the, price of crude oil. It appears that we're about to go through the same routes like we did some last year. Also.
That is the pain, and that's another sore point especially for countries like Nigeria, like you mentioned earlier, rely mostly on accruals from crude oil to finance our budget. It's going to be another grinding moment for us. But then the most painful thing is having to go through the ban on it emanated from South Africa, and in order not to repeat the earlier mistake, because when this broke out earlier in 2019, countries were reluctant to actually shut borders, ban people coming in, visitors coming in from the countries, from China and all that. So that now gave COVID-19 all the time to spread to other countries, and before decisive action, before countries start evolving decisive action, we realize that it has penetrated. It has penetrated to all corners of the world, and I think governments around the world have learned from the 2019 experience and decide to immediately, good for South Africa, that is what is supposed to be. Immediately they discover that there is another variant. They alerted World Health Organization that, look, this is something else.
Right.
Now, the decision, the reaction is neither here nor there. Countries has the right to protect their citizens from, or maybe they are shut their borders or restrict people from South Africa from coming in and all that. And South Africa, on the other hand, South Africa is beginning to feel bad. Why? Why are we being banned?
Yeah.
Is it because we alerted the World Health Organization about the outbreak and all that? It is neither here nor there.
And when you think about it, the Omicron vaccine, variant of the COVID-19 is not the first variant that we've seen after the first.
Yes.
We've had the Delta variant and all of that, but I have not seen that kind of reaction.
Yes.
When we had the Delta variant.
Experience is the best teacher, they said. But haven't learned from the outbreak in 2019 and the Delta variant and all that. I think countries are beginning to take proactive measures to ensure that they limit the extent these new variant can penetrate because they know the cost. They are still counting the cost.
But some African leaders, are of the opinion that It is because this variant is coming from an African country.
It's victim
Yes,
mentality.
and so that they're trying to subdue Africa
No,
in some way.
I think it's victim mentality, whether you like it or not. A lot of pains has been incurred. Countries has gone through pains, having to, because of possibly our weather or something. We've not really had a pinch of COVID. We didn't have pinch of COVID-19, just like in Europe that has extremely cold weather, America and all that. So if they react the way they are reacting to it, I'm not going to blame them. Why I won't blame them is with the figures from COVID-19 when it broke out and the number of people they have to people were just, it's sad. So you don't blame anybody for taking any action at this time to prevent anything from coming into their country, irrespective of whether it's coming from Africa or it's from countries of Europe and all that. If you don't want to be despised, up your economic power so that when issues like this come up, there will weigh between having to, because let's be realistic here. In international politics, there is nothing like sentiment. It's your interest, the interest of your nation first. You are part of global community, but also you are there to get part of the cake for your people. And when, for instance, let's on the flip side, if we say this variant is from the US, countries will have to look at how significant is US to their economy. If they are ready to pay the price to allow visitors to continue to enter their country from the US, they will have waged, look, US is indispensable to what we do here. So let's see if we can bear the pains. But then, if they look at what we have to benefit from this country, so it's not worth the pain to leave our borders open or to still allow visitors into our country.
I'm just, wondering, though, the kind of cover that we are taking, here in Nigeria. We appear to, heavily depend on the vaccination, that the vaccination campaign and the drive that is ongoing right now. As to other measures, I don't know if we are really, up and doing with respect to the Omicron variant.
Yes, well, the South African president visits and all that is coming at a time. There's a lot of misgivings about that decision at this time, and what we are having with regard to COVID vaccine, the figures are really not good. I think less than 2% of our population has been vaccinated. And that is not good. So, but a lot of factors here. Our mindset is something else. Some people believe the same people who goes to hospital, when they feel some pains, they go to hospital. Doctor tells them, look, this is, or maybe they are diagnosed and say, this is what is wrong with you. The same person now is giving, they will give birth, go to hospital to be vaccinated against measles and against all that. But the same people are now saying that this vaccine, we are suspecting it. There is something.
A lot of conspiracy
theories flying everywhere. So
right.
I think it will be better if we start taking the vaccine, and government needs to do more to be able to convince the people that, look, this is, by campaign is very important, and that is where we have institutions like NOA and all that, because when you show me someone who has taken the vaccine, about 10 people who took the vaccine about 3 months ago, and they are still living healthy, they are still okay, I think it will go a long way.
So I want us to talk about this Kaduna teachers, saga. Again, after the government have taken the pain and the bold decision to sack massively, teachers, we are seeing yet the recruitment of fresh teachers that are supposed to come and, sanitize and salvage the situation are also coming to present fake certificates.
That's right.
So that's taking us back.
That is the irony of the Nigerian society. I think that the gap is in Nigeria is between what is supposed to be and what it is now. Now, leadership, in leadership engagements, anybody can say yes. The greatest test of leadership capacity or ability is the ability to say no. And that is, I think that at this point, I will give it to Governor Nasir El-Rufai, that he possesses the capacity to say no when he is supposed to say no. And that is leadership. We give that to him. We grew up in rural areas, having good education. And why is teachers see themselves first not as salary earners. They see themselves first as people who impact, they build generations. Those are to be remembered tomorrow. When they see people they trained some years ago doing well, their joy comes from there first, apart from the care from government or remuneration and all that. So when one of the missing link in the educational system is recruitment, teachers recruitment process. It has been skewed, especially these things got so bad. I think from 1999, when politicians started bringing in their talks and see, there was a case in, I'm not going to mention the state now, but I'm very familiar with the state. So at the Teaching Service Commission, there is provision for a secondary school. It is in the record that a particular secondary school exists in a community, whereas there's nothing like that. But let me tell you, in the record, the secondary school I'm talking about had principal, had vice principal, had everything, teachers working there. Meanwhile, there is none. It is a place
school does not exist.
It doesn't exist.
Terrible.
It doesn't exist. But
everything,
everything,
so we've gone beyond having
it's-
ghost teachers
Yes.
or
So
ghost
ghost
workers.
schools.
Now we are not talking about ghost schools.
Yes.
Institutions.
So you see, and you go to villages. Experience has shown that politicians will put some of their loyalists, they are on payroll, they are not doing anything. But to formalize it, they get them, even those that are not qualified, get certificate, come and enter here, they will be paying you. And education suffers. So now, the decision of Malam Nasir El-Rufai is the best anybody can take. See, leadership is about, you don't have to live. After all, we are celebrating Martin Luther King today. Died some about 68 or thereabout. We are still celebrating him. The whole of US dedicate a whole day to one person. There is nobody like that. Why? Because of price of leadership. He paid the price. It's not how long you live, but the impact you've been able to. Malam Nasir El-Rufai has demonstrated in clear terms that leadership is about impact, and that is he knew quite well that education is already suffering in Nigeria. Between 10 and 13 million out of school children. That is already a disaster waiting to happen on its own. So, and having fake teachers who don't, possess the required qualification to teach children is also another problem on its own.
Not to talk about the threats of insecurity.
I
as well.
think if you are a leader and you allow this kind of mess to go unattended, that is to say that you have a place on the wrong side of history. But for this decision, I think it is the best any right-thinking person, any nationalist, a good politician would have.
Okay. You know, we've been seeing this coming from particularly Kaduna State.
Yes.
Would you say we need to look inward into other parts of the country because we're going to find this also coming up?
See, why Kaduna is in the news is as simple as somebody is courageous to take decisions, irrespective of whose horse is God, irrespective of whatever name you are going to call him. And I think it is the decision. Apart from, you see, if you go to Kaduna, you see practical why leadership exists. So it's the same thing that is bringing to bear in education sector. When I think at a point, he took his child to school, went by himself, register the child, to encourage more people to come to. I think if you have taken that kind of pains to pass through all that, and it's the same school that somebody will go to a business center, or maybe the school, the system he did not pass through, he just purchase certificate that I am a teacher. You see, if we can mortgage anything, not teachers. That is the best. That is where there are countries that, but I think in South Korea, so teachers take better pay than ministers and high government officials.
I think this brings me to this particular question.
Right.
You know, when we're growing up, we see teachers, people say their reward is in heaven because of how, you know, they nurture children and they do it wholeheartedly. Would you say that notion have changed over time because of the inability of the government to look into their welfare?
I think it's you can't treat it in isolation. They all are societal value over time has degenerated. Yes. And that is it. That has impacted on teachers also, because where we have gotten to a point in our life, in our society, that what people worship is wealth, not what the impact you can make. Name has become useless. That is what the driving force of the teachers of my era, for instance. It was when they come to you. When I was to leave from primary school to secondary school, a particular miss, she's still alive. I still go like after God, my parents is her, because she comes. She told my father that, look, I need to pay for this boy, but we just have to jump from class 5 to secondary school. You get it? They go from house to house, and their driving force is that name, that satisfaction they derive from being a teacher. People, they are respected in the society, irrespective of whatever they are paid, they are contented. It is that missing link. Now, and the same teachers are living in a society where wealth determines what you can get. Your right is not even it's not there, except you have money.
Right.
So everybody wants to have money. So as far as I'm concerned, there's a lot we need to do about teachers.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Now, let's look at other stories on the papers. The nation talks about pressure on the president to reject electoral amendment bill. There's a conversation, about direct primaries or not direct primaries. The governors are kicking and saying, no, we don't want, direct primaries and all of that. And it appears that other voices seem to be, more comfortable with this idea of direct primaries.
Let me, before I weigh in on this, let me give an example. Start with example to give us clear understanding of what is going on here. When there are countries, there are leaders of countries, leaders of thought. When Mandela was released and became president of South Africa, he came under undue pressure to continue as leader. If he had decided to continue until he dies, of course, that goodwill was there. But he told them in plain truth that I'm not out for this. The purpose why I became the president is already done. So I'm on my way out. He said that 3 years into his administration, he started ceding power to Thabo Mbeki, his deputy. See, leadership is about legacy. See, President Muhammadu Buhari has the golden moment to write his name. See, whether we like it or not, we are not in the world to play politics. We are in the world we are going to give account of everything we do, whether it is certain that the good books has already promised that whatever we do, apart from here, the goodwill we leave for our people, we are still going to give account of it. Life is not about politics. Don't forget, in 2010, somebody summoned courage and signed 2010 Electoral Act as amended. That gave some credibility to the election of 2015. Life is supposed to be progress. I mean, that 2010, Now, if we sign this now, a transmission of result electronically, we are upping our, and by the time in the next 10 years, we are looking at other amendments that will, confer credibility on our electoral process. President Buhari should close his ears to the people, because those people are not going to write his, they are not going to write his history. It is the people, it is Nigerians, it is children on the street now. It is the people that are standing by now that are going to say, oh, after all, this man meant well for Nigeria, and he demonstrated as so and so. He was able to demonstrate that. He was able to demonstrate that he's a true statesman. See, this is his golden moment. Politics aside, legacy is there. What people are going to remember you for. To some extent, I attended some programs recently that about 2-3 leaders, African leaders, made some remarks about President Buhari, having, especially in the area of his character. Yes, I was elated to hear that. Immediately they said that he added something to what I believe about him. This also can be part of what people are going to say about him, because every other variables depend on good election. If we have our election process right, irrespective, see, hunger does not know political party. Hunger does not know political party or where you come from. It's as if you are hungry, you are hungry. What you need, you can even go to your enemy. If your enemy is carrying food, and hunger can prompt you to.
So with this debate going on now, what in your opinion is the best, for Nigerians as a country? What is the best for our electoral process in Nigeria?
Sign it, so that it will be progress, incremental progress on what happened in 2010. If you look at it, that it was someone, he had his own political party, and despite pressures from...
But are you not, what about the issues raised, by those who said, look, these direct primaries, we do not have the funds, to run direct primaries, is too expensive, and some of the arguments also that have been raised.
It's the cheapest.
It's
the cheapest. See, politicians will always look, especially not to right-minded ones, we look for any excuse to puncture any good initiative. So if you say political parties is made up of, there is political party because they are members. So why you don't want to give members opportunity to select who is going to be their candidate. So you want to confer who becomes the candidate of a political party to few individuals. So what is the political party there? Yes, if you ask me, if you take away democracy, starts from how candidates emerge, and that is what we are the missing link on this one of the missing links in our democracy. If you say I belong to so party, this person belongs to so party. So, but the person has no right or power to say, okay, from this state now, we are the stakeholders. We are members of this party. So this is the person we want to be our flag bearer. So, how are you a member of a political party when you don't have the power to decide who is going to? So I've witnessed this before. In those days, it was direct primaries, the aborted IBB transition. People queue up and they count. Let me give practical example. I was in Makurdi, and that was how Reverend Father Moses Adasu in Benue emerged, because it was direct primaries. Political party members, if you are a card-carrying member of the party, they line up and you are counted. So by the time results, just like this normal election. And so that is the Reverend Father, who is not a mainstream politician, But he was able to break in because they left it to party people to decide who they want to be their candidate.
Okay, now, why do you think, governors are against, direct primaries?
See, for their own end. Yes, because, listen, if you go to state assembly, at the presidency, it's even better. See, what the president is taking from the governors will not take from those under them. Let me give you state assemblies now are like, they are just like a part of a briefcase of a governor. Yes, yeah. They are part of a briefcase of a governor, because whatever he wants is what he gets from the state assembly. And how did that happen? The people there were handpicked. The governor has overwhelming influence on who represents constituency 1, constituency 2, like that. So from the beginning, they try to influence who is going to come into state assembly. Then if you are one who can bear independent opinion, you don't get there. You don't get there because the governors are like emperors in their various states. So the state assembly is not there to check the governor, what the governor is doing. So whatever he brings is what passes. So what hope do you? Is there any hope under that kind of arrangement for the downtrodden or the electorate? No. Why the governors are against this is as simple as, look, let this man not come and spoil our show. We must continue to decide who comes into the state assembly so that we can still continue to have our way to do whatever we like. So, and the people themselves, you see, politicians, if at local level, for instance, this is the person they prefer, but because they don't have the right, it's just like my own constituency, for instance. 2 people will represent my ward, or like 5 people represents my ward, to go and vote who is going to be. That's not democracy.
Sometimes you don't even know who the delegates
you
are.
don't know. You don't know.
And how they are even selected.
How they are selected is just something else.
And all that. Well, also, with the issue of the electoral amendment, is this issue of independent candidacy. Do you see that also as a game changer, as we approach the 2023, if we are able to pass that through?
I think it will be the best thing, best leap for our democracy, if we are able to get it right. I was in April, I was in Monrovia, Liberia, for a conference. And something struck me. We were 2 independent part of ECOWAS Parliament. There are 2 independent members. That is to say that one from Sierra Leone and the other from Gambia. So when they announced them, and a friend told me these are independent lawmakers. They just emerged based on their credit, no political party or anything. I took interest in them and I started engaging them, like interviewing them. The session is on. They are here. They are in Nigeria at the moment. And what they told me is mind-boggling. One told me that because he don't belong to political party, so political party will come to Chief's Palace and stop there. But he goes from where bike can no longer go, he will park his bike. Where car cannot go, he will park his car, take bike. Where bike stops, he will trek. Where bicycle can pass through, he will use. And he was visiting people like that with the little resources that he has been doing it over time. So he is known for that kind of work. He don't have much, but that the little he has, he used to support education, go from house to house to encourage parents to take their school. If they complain that they don't have, that he got some few friends who are supporting him, get him uniform and all that, he'll be able to give to them, please buy books, support them. that is how he was against a very popular candidate. He was able to win. So he's in his second term now. Even the man from Gambia won under President Yahya Jammeh. That was when he was first elected. That is to tell you that if we are able to ratify, to pull this through, it would be the best thing, because I'm seeing some people who are not satisfied with the political party system we have, because they believe that is the purview of corruption. But they believe that if there is provision for independent candidature, that will be the game changer. They will go into politics.
I really hope that works
Yeah,
for us
we
down here
look
in
forward to
Nigeria.
yes, we look forward to seeing that. Well, thank you so much for coming on the program this morning and giving us your perspectives on these stories. We've been speaking with Omonu Nelson Yakubu. He is a publisher, Summit Post newspaper. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We look forward to having you again.
Thank you, TrustTV, and congratulations for a very good start.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right.
All right. Now we will just hold on. All right. We will go on a quick break, and then when we come back, we will be taking our first discussion on the program. Please stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that a person look like the same,
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
because I have said that.
Get latest updates on current topical issues and breaking news by downloading the TrustTV mobile app on your Android devices. Go online, click Google Play Store, search TrustTV, install the app, and get doses of unfiltered information on happenings all over the world in your pocket. TrustTV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Right, welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Daybreak on Trust Television. It's now time for the first discussion on the program. Now, today, December 3rd, is the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. The theme for IDPD this year is Leadership and Participation of Persons with Disabilities towards an inclusive, accessible, and sustainable post-COVID-19 world. Well, today, the world population is over 7 billion people, and more than 1 billion people, or approximately 15% of that number, live with some form of disability, with 80% living in developing countries. Now, the annual observance of the International Day of Disabled Persons was proclaimed in 1992 by the United Nations General Assembly resolution. It aims to promote the rights and well-being of persons with disabilities in all spheres of society and development, and also to increase awareness of the situation of persons with disabilities in every aspect of political, social, economic, and cultural life. Now we have in the studio Tracy Onabis, a disability inclusion officer with the Inclusive Friends Association, to give us perspective on this issue. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning, you're welcome. Now, first let's talk about the significance of this day, specifically for you as a person and as for the group that you represent.
Okay, for me as a person, December 3rd is like a beautiful presenter mentioned, is the International Day for Persons with Disabilities. And it's a day where persons with disabilities get this sense of belonging, because it's an avenue for their rights, for our rights, because I'm a person with disability, for our rights to be promoted, for more advocacies to go out on issues that have been, under the carpet over a period of time. It's a day that persons with disabilities have the avenue to interface with stakeholders and let them know issues that are burning, in their lives, and issues that they need urgent attention to be taken care of. As an organization, the Inclusive Friends Association, where I work, December 3rd is a day for us to push more advocacy. We intensify what we've already been doing in the course of the year with specific programs that we've marked out just for this day to celebrate and create awareness on issues of persons with disabilities. Thank you.
Okay, so let's talk about these issues, that are of concern. What are some of the challenges, that we have seen over time here, and, what do we hope to achieve, with the advocacy that we are out to do?
Okay, persons with disabilities face a lot of challenges, and these challenges have been intensified with the advent of the pandemic. Ordinarily, persons with disabilities face discriminations. The employment rate of persons with disabilities in Nigeria particularly is very, very high because of the stigmatization and the stereotypes and hasty generalization of employers when they see persons with disabilities, and a host of others. I can name a lot of things that persons with disabilities are going through. And of course, women and girls with disabilities suffer, too much violation from close persons, the spousal violation, and of course caregivers and all of those things. These are some of the issues that are very, very that are increasing by the day because of the pandemic. So persons with disabilities who go out of the box, who go out of their way to make something good out of themselves, do not have the enabling environment to showcase these abilities. You find a situation where you go to an employer and maybe you submit a CV, you pass that stage, you get to the interview, and you even do, exceptionally well at the interview. But because of your disability, they decide to give that job opportunity to someone else. They do not care if you have the requisite experience to grow that organization. That in itself is a big problem. And of course, the social exclusion of persons with disabilities, where someone brings home a bride who has a disability, whether it's physical or sensory, and the family goes, no, we can't have this one, because they feel disability is contagious. They feel it's hereditary. If they marry that one, he or she, they are going to have children with disabilities and all of those things. So the advocacies that we are pushing out at this point today is going to cover the area of employment, is going to cover speaking up against disability-based violence, which is something my organization has been doing since January this year, where we have been training advocates to go out there and advocate against disability-based violence. There is gender-based violence in the broader spectrum, but disability-based violence is tailored particularly for persons with disabilities, because it is violence that is meted out on a person solely because of their disability. So the advocacies we are putting out today, as part of the activities we are going to be having today, my colleagues are going to be having a street interview to talk to people about what they understand by disability. Would you allow your family member to marry a person with disability? Would you want to be in the same house with a person with disability? I've had people tell me that they've never really come close to a person with albinism because they are scared, you know, and all of these things come from what we were told, what they were told growing up. You know, it's a child is born with, if I may use the word, blank, intellect. It is what you feed into that the child grows up with. So when you see people who discriminate and stigmatize against persons with disabilities, it is because they have been made to believe that that is the norm. Because society sees persons with disabilities as cursed, they see them as celestial beings. In some cases, they see them as consequences of some evil deed. So these advocacies we are putting out is to put a stop to all of these injustices and discriminations and stigmatizations that persons with disabilities face in the workplaces, in their private lives, in the society, in religious organizations. You go to some churches and mosques, at the entrance, you see the steps as if you are climbing the gates to heaven or to paradise. And if I am a wheelchair user, I want to go to church and worship. When I get there, seeing the almighty steps, what do? There is no ramp. And of course, other fellow worshippers will just be walking by. Nobody would even want to know, do I want to get in or something? Maybe they would think, she's here for a miracle, she wants to get healed. But not every disability is curable. Right. You know, Jesus healed some persons with disabilities in the Bible, but of course he did not heal everybody, because not every disability. So these discriminations are everywhere. These barriers are everywhere. They could be attitudinal, that is from people's behavior, people's perception, people's attitude in all of the spaces we go to.
Okay. Now, how would you, describe the status of disability rights in Nigeria?
Okay. First of all, I would like to appreciate the present administration. That's the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, who kindly passed the Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities law in 2018. That was a huge, in fact, it is a huge milestone in the disability community, because a lot of work has been going on before that time, up until he passed the law. And he also went ahead to establish the Disability Commission, which is charged with the responsibility of running with the vision of persons with disabilities and see that they have a complete mechanism, they have places to channel all of their requests and all of those things. Now, for the status of disability law in Nigeria, I know that presently quite a number of states have domesticated the disability law, but that is not enough. It's not enough to domesticate it. Like when we ratified the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities as a nation in 2007, the disability law was passed in 2018. How many years after, right? So we have a number of states who have also domesticated these laws, but are there implementations?
We have, from the records, we have 23 states that have neglected the disability rights.
Yes, that's so 22 so have neglected out of 36. You do the maths, you get. So when we say, okay, for the states that have implemented, domesticated it, how far have they gone in implementing the provisions of these laws? There is a particular section that provides, for instance, 5% quota of employment for persons with disabilities. Which state can say, okay, they have this number of persons with disabilities actively engaged in service? It's not enough to say, okay, we've given 50 persons with disabilities in each local government jobs. What do they do in those places where you employ them? Because some just employ persons with disabilities in name only. They come there, they sit all day. They do not provide reasonable accommodation for them to be able to be productive and add value to that agency or department. So that is not employment, if you ask me. If I'm not doing anything, I'm coming to sit and you pay me. You go out there and, everybody claps and all of that. But I, as the person you have employed, you are not adding value to my life. And I am not adding value to the organization, which is what I was supposed to do. So yes, the laws have been domesticated, but how far have we gone with implementation? So that is why more advocacies need to go at like what we are already doing to see that there is active implementation, not just in theory, but in practice of the provisions of this law. Okay,
so we'll talk more, about, the laws and implementation and all that. But I want you to talk about the role of culture in failing, some of the stereotypes that we see in the belief, the thinking, around the society when it comes to relating with persons with disabilities.
Okay. Like they taught us back in the days, culture is the way of life of a group of people, right? So I mentioned something earlier that every child is born open. There is nothing in their minds. They just come clean. But when a child is born, like for instance, let me just use myself as an example to explain this.
Yes.
In the community where I grew up in Edo State, I and my siblings were the only kids with albinism in my particular clan. So you see, in a group of 50 children, would stand out like sore spots, you know, and everybody would run. Some would chant, you know, this Nigerian popular nursery rhyme, Oyinbo Pepe, that kind of thing. And it is because they've seen adults do it. It's because adults have told them that persons with albinism, don't go close to them. If you go close to them, this, that. So that is why they do all of those things. And in some cultures in Nigeria where they kill twins, they throw children with disabilities in the river because they feel they are curses, or the gods of the land are angry, so they try to punish the child with children with disabilities. It is because those who are doing it presently, or who did it at the time, have seen their elders do it. So some of these wrong, cultural norms, they need to be checked. There are some parts of Nigeria today where they still kill persons with albinism because they feel that, I don't know whatever their reasons are, you know, they don't want persons with albinism in the society. Some think they have albinism in the society because an ancestor had slept with a white man, the colonial masters and all of those things. So when you have a child with albinism, they kill them. Yeah. And others for ritual purposes. Something when you kill persons with disability, like there was a time a guy who has a hunchback was killed, and only the hunch was taken away. Because they have the belief that hunch was going to produce money. They were going to use the hunch for rituals. So all of these wrong cultural beliefs, they are violations of fundamental rights, both as per provisions of local instruments and international instruments. You don't just grab a person and maim them or kill them for selfish reasons because of erroneous beliefs. So that is why advocacy is going out in all states, in every corner. Many OPDs and CSOs are pushing these messages that all of these cultural beliefs need to be stopped. And we should not pass these messages on to the forthcoming generations so that persons with disabilities, because disability is not about to end anytime soon until there is rapture. It's like poverty. It cannot end. There is no two ways about it. You're either born with a disability or you earn it at any point during your life cycle. You know, I know somebody will say God forbid, but it happens. So we need to put a stop to all of these things. And so we or our loved ones do not fall victim to these things. We are blatantly ignoring them because we feel it's none of our business. We are not the ones who wear the shoe, so it doesn't pinch.
Okay. Now, talking about, the next generation, let's talk about children with disabilities. There was a time I met this very young boy. I think he was 2 years old, and then he came out to play. And all the children started running, oh, Oyibo, just like you've mentioned, Oyibo, oh, everybody was running, and he wanted to play, with these children. And then his mother came out. She almost cried, because she saw the discrimination, that was happening towards that child. Many would say for children, it's a different kind of feeling. So what, do you have any form, of advocacy or a platform where you can talk about children with disabilities and how to encourage them to belong to a society despite that discrimination?
Okay. So for children with disabilities, like you mentioned, right? They are still very young, and they do not even understand yet why they are different from other children in the society. They just find that they are treated differently because the adults in the lives of the other children have made them understand that this is what is obtainable, which is erroneous in its nature. Okay, so children with disabilities, there are organizations who are particularly working to create separate spaces for children with disabilities to thrive. But what we are advocating for is an all-inclusive society where we do not have to separate children with disabilities from children without disabilities.
Right.
Now we're talking, for instance, inclusive education, which entails having children with disabilities go to the same schools with children without disabilities. Let them interact. Let them mix up. Disability is not contagious. If a child with albinism hugs a child without albinism, the child without albinism does not automatically become a child with albinism. Or a child who has autism spectrum disability is not transferable by touch or anything, right? So we are looking at a situation where children without disabilities are made to socialize with children with disabilities. And this will breed a future where we have adults who are more open and accommodating that is adults without disabilities, and then we have adults with disabilities who are more confident, because when these other children make these snide remarks, against children with disabilities, they shrink.
Right.
They don't want to associate with them anymore. They want to just go hide in the corner. I was a victim of that. Up until a point I decided, okay, if this is the way it's going to go, I'm going to be in those spaces. And there's nothing you're going to do about it. But not every child can come to that point where they decide that it's all or nothing. Some hide out forever.
Okay. Yeah. All right, we'll talk more on that shortly. Let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll talk more, about, children, education, and the need to change the narrative. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. And if you're just joining, you're watching Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. We are discussing the International Day for persons living with disability, and we have in the studio Tracy Onabi's Disability Inclusion Officer, talking about the narratives and the need to change them. Now, just before we went on break, we were talking about children and how they get exposed, some of these stigma and stereotypes. The first place of exposure for the child is school, at least for many children, is school. How about the role of teachers, in changing these narratives? Because sometimes the children, they don't even know that they have some kind of, what they have is disability until when they begin to see how other people behave, towards them and all of that. So this idea of having school for children or persons with disability different, or this kind of categorization or segregation and all of that, how is that helping to change these things? Okay,
so before I answer that question, you said persons living with disabilities. The excuse me, the proper thing is persons with disabilities. When you say living, is like disability is your housemate.
Okay.
Yes, so it's persons with disabilities and not persons living with disabilities.
All right.
Yes, so a lot of people have that mix up all the time, but we're trying to subtly change that. Okay, so now the role of teachers, that's a very, very serious issue right now. Because some teachers, like we're talking all the while, is because of what they also believe. Because of the things they've seen in society, they've been programmed to see disability as a very difficult thing. And when they have children with disabilities in their classes, that is if they allow the child at all. Because I've had cases of teachers tell children with disabilities to go home, go to the streets, what are you doing here? I don't have time for this, I cannot deal with this. So if they allow the child with disabilities at all, most teachers do not pay attention to the needs of that particular child. For instance, a child who has albinism in a classroom, low vision, serious low vision comes with albinism, right? When I was in school, I was not able to see the blackboard from my seat. And when I would leave my seat to go and look, so I would be able to know what is written and writing. If I go more than twice, my teacher would tell me, come on, sit down, you're the only person in this class. They did not understand that I needed to go and see really close for me to be able to decipher what they have written, so as to be able to understand what was being taught. So there's need for teachers to to be brought together and for their capacity to be built on disability issues. I'm just using albinism as an instance because of myself. But I have a friend who has a physical disability, and as far as tertiary institutions, lecturers tell you expressly that you should leave the classes. You should go to the streets. The school is not meant for you. Or go to a special school, go to a different school where they have assistive devices for your needs. But why not create the enabling environment? Give that student maybe extra time, for instance, because of the nature of their impairment, so that they can meet up with their peers. And you see that those who are given those little opportunities, they do exceedingly well. I've never seen a person with disability. I know, yes, as we have it with persons without disabilities, so also we have persons with disabilities who are not that smart. But for those who set their mind to study, they do it exceptionally well, and they come out with good grades. So teachers need to create allowances for children with disabilities. Find out what are their disability needs. Does this child need to, for those who are hard of hearing, who are deaf, you talk all day, they do not understand. All schools need to start teaching sign languages so that children can interact with children who are deaf. Or a sign language interpreter can interpret what the teacher is saying so that the child without disability is not left behind. This is part of the SDGs, leave no one behind. When we do not take into cognizance the needs, the particular needs of that child with disability, vis-a-vis the type of disability the child has, you will be excluding that child and you'll be leaving that child behind. So that is not education in any sense, if you ask me. So their capacity needs to be built on disability issues, what it is, what it entails, what they need to do to make the school an enabling environment so that when other children bully these children, they can safely come to the teacher and say, oh ma, sir, look at what this person did. And the teacher would handle it diplomatically and he would put a stop to it. But not you even cheering the bully on and like, you're not happy that he's playing with you or something. If you don't like it, go home. They make all of these statements all the time, and it's traumatizing for that child. Some children with disabilities don't want to go back to school because they make jest of them. Some teachers will bring out a child with disability and use them as an example of something very, very funny and unpleasant.
Right. So what would you say would be the role, for parents in this regard?
Okay. He mentioned that the first place of learning for children is the school. But for me, I think the first place of learning and the most important place for learning is the home.
Right.
At school is only a formal setting. But at home is informal because that is where they see all of the examples. That is why you have children from an abusive home, they are aggressive. Any little thing they want to fight. So if you as a parent, you are out there, you're walking on the road, you see a child with disability, you see anybody with disability, because you see them everywhere, under the bridges. Don't try to hide your child, under your skirt or something, as if they are going to contact something from that person. You be the example. Walk up to the person. I'm not saying give out arms or something. Walk up to the person and say, oh, hi, how are you? How is the weather? How are you feeling today? What are you doing here? Do you go to school or something? And let your child see that example. But when you see a person with disability and you are hiding your child away, or like in some funny cases where a pregnant woman is walking and they see a person with disability and they pinch the stomach front and back so that the disability does not jump into it. It happens, It happens. When I was pregnant with my child, they told me to wear a pin because we are going to do a program at Karamajiji. There's a disability colony there. So they said, no. The first time they allowed me, they didn't know. But when we got there, one woman brought me this safety pin and I should pin it on my shirt that this community, it doesn't happen. There's no scientific explanation for that. So as parents, we should be the example. Let us tell our children. My children in the school, they have kids with disabilities. So when my daughter got home, she was like, Mommy, there's this girl in my school that cannot walk. She was trying to imitate the way the child. I'm like, it's not that she cannot walk. She walks differently. I told her, when you see her tomorrow, don't run. Say hello and go to your class. She was like, okay. Then she came back one day and said their teacher took her own class to the class of children with disabilities to play. I was like, wow, that is amazing. So as parents, what we tell our children matters. If you tell your children that when you see a child with disability, chant Oyibo Pepe as if your whole life depends on it. Because some do it with so much glee. Like they derive joy from saying Oyibo Pepe when you walk past adults. And this is because their parents allowed it. So we should be the role models for our children. Not just in areas of disability, even old age. You see children, they see an elder, they don't even care, they don't greet you, they walk past because their parents let them get away with such things. So when we want an inclusive society, we parents have a lot to do. It's in our hands because what we teach our children that the school will only, reinforce. The school cannot force your child to know what you as the parent do not want them to know. So let's model the right behavior towards persons with disabilities, the right attitude towards persons with disabilities for our children.
Okay. Now, just before we go, I want us to talk about traditional rulers. if they have a role here, and what kind of collaboration do we need to have between, persons with disability and traditional rulers to change some of this narrative? Like we mentioned, how instrumental culture, beliefs and all of that.
Yeah. Okay, so in one of the research we did this year at my organization, we had the opportunity of visiting the traditional ruler of Riom in Plateau State. Yes. So when I asked him a question that, sir, if by, there's this thing that happens traditionally where titles pass from fathers to son.
Right.
So I asked him if by tradition, there's a title in your cabinet that passes from a father to a child with a disability, an adult with a disability. Would you let the person take the seat, or would you pass it over to somebody without disability? And he said, of course, he would let the person have the seat if that is what the tradition dictates. Then I asked him, okay, do you have any person with disability in your present cabinet, not those who have to inherit the title? And he said, currently there is none. Okay. So, but traditional rulers have a major role to play. First of all, in ending all of these wrong and deadly cultural beliefs that are fatal to the lives of persons with disabilities. It is what the traditional ruler says it is that it will be. The ancestors who made the laws, they are dead and gone. They cannot come and haunt you. Forget that thing. Right? So traditional rulers should be able to put a stop to honor killings, to harmful traditional practices where they cut body parts of persons with disabilities or they throw them in the river. And of course, be open to collaborate with persons with disabilities in your communities. If you are calling for meetings of clan members, community members to discuss anything, make sure that persons with disabilities are also invited. You know where they are. Do not ignore them and expect that the message will pass to them. Persons with disabilities are as much part of the community as persons without disabilities on an equal basis. So whenever you are passing information, you are having ceremonies, you are having events, traditional rulers need to bring persons with disabilities on board. And the best way they can do that is by having persons with disabilities in their cabinet. That would be the best person to disseminate information, to coordinate and mobilize persons with disabilities to interface with traditional rulers. And traditional rulers should use their offices to advocate for inclusion of persons with disabilities, to advocate for the respect of the dignity of persons with disabilities, to advocate to stop the stereotype and stigmatization of persons with disabilities within their community, so that those persons can live an independent and productive life within that community.
Well, thank you so much. It's been, quite interesting getting to hear, some of the challenges and the whole conversation about, inclusiveness of persons with disabilities. We've been speaking with Tracy Onabis, Disability Inclusion Officer with the Inclusive Friends Association. Thank you so much for coming on the program, and we hope to have you next time.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right, let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll take a look at other disturbing story. This time around, talking about a victim of assault in one of the communities in the FCT where demolition exercise took place. Please stay with us.
Get latest updates on current topical issues and breaking news by downloading the TrustTV mobile app on your Android devices. Go online, click Google Play Store, search TrustTV, install the app, and get doses of unfiltered information on happenings all over the world in your pocket. TrustTV, documenting the Nigerian story. Get latest updates on current topical issues and breaking news by downloading the TrustTV mobile app on your Android devices. Go online, click Google Play Store, search TrustTV, install the app, and get doses of unfiltered information on happenings all over the world in your pocket. Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Is your phone on silent?
From the nation's capital in Abuja. Now, on September 28th, the Federal Capital Territory Ministerial Task Force on City Sanitation stormed Lungu Settlement in Gwarimpa, Abuja, with a plan to demolish all the shanties in the area. Now, violence started when the exercise was resisted by the indigenous Bagi settlers in the locality, and both parties suffered casualties. The settlers argued that such a demolition was unlawful as the inhabitants were not given a prior notice. Now, Trust TV gathered that from the violence that ensued, the task force claimed 8 of its members were injured, while on the settler side, several inhabitants sustained bullet wounds. One of the victims of that incident is in the studio here to narrate what actually happened. And he's going to be talking to us about his ordeal. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, thank you.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
All right. Now let's get let's begin with your narration of what happened that day.
Okay, my narration that very day.
Yes.
All right. This happened 28th of September this year, around 2 p.m. We're in our community. All of a sudden, we had siren, and then we came out. When we came out, we saw the State Task Force, a combination of civil defense, soldiers, police, and none of them that were there with that gun. They were well armed. And then we were like, what is the problem? From there, they started beating the committee member. The last time they came, we protested and they ran away. We thought it would be the same thing. But because they were armed, even the children, the women, they were shooting. We started shooting everybody around. Even I myself, I was trying to run before I knew. The soldier man squatted down and he shot me down. I tried to struggle to run away. Thank God, with the help of some youth, they dragged me on the ground. I was being dragged out of the community and I was rushed to hospital. And many were shot on their legs, many pillars. The women were beaten. We are being treated as if we are not Nigerians. were beaten. I was, that day, it's a day that I will never forget. Because the way we were treated was so bad. And this dimension, there's no notice. This dimension, there's no a concrete agreement with the community, with the development control, whoever that is involved. And this just came, and as I'm talking to you, most of the indigenous of that community don't have their house to lay their heads on. We have been there without our house. Personally, I myself, where I'm staying, has been demolished. And right now, we heard the rumors that they are coming, and the chief house is involved to be demolished. I heard that people are going around that the chief collected the money, and the government control are saying that the chief collected the money. I don't know. Wow. Where is the agreement? Where is the proof that the chief collected the money?
Okay. All right. Now, while we are having this discussion, we will be taking pictures of what happened, a picture of the victim in the hospital, and want to advise that that viewers should take caution. It's going to be some disturbing pictures, and we also would like to tell you that we have invited the chairman of the task force committee in the FCT to come and also speak on the matter. We haven't gotten a response. Phone calls that were put through and text messages were sent as well. We didn't get, any response. But we will just continue and get, more, facts about what transpired on that day. Now, what warranted the use of firearm on that day? Was there some kind of, fight? Were the youths carrying arms, or were they a threat, to the, task force that came?
There wasn't. There was not any threat to them. All I knew was that at the course of the demotion, everybody was trying to see what he would grab. And then very close to that place, we had a vigilante office there. And then there were some vigilante members that were there. So them two were they want to pack some of their property in the office, the vigilante office. And then it was at the cost of that, because in the vigilante office, they have this hunter gun that they used to use. They were packing them and then to run away from the threats that were coming from them for the demolition. But to my surprise, the police are using it against us, that we are criminals and that we came out with guns. I myself have never handled a gun. So we didn't touch them in any way.
Was there any communication at any point between the leaders of your community and the task force before anything happened?
There was not. The first demotion 2014, there's no any communication to the community. There's no notice. I've never seen a demotion that they will just come and demolish without a notice. They took us on surprise, and the second one, the same thing, up to the last one. There's no any sitting with the agreement with the community, or that the community leader is aware of the demolition. They only come to us as if we are criminals. They begin to demolish the houses.
Okay. Now, your father is the chief, of Lungu community.
Yes.
And according to reports, he was also, brutalized.
Yes.
What warranted that, to happen?
Well, when I was shot, and then I was told that when he heard that I was shot, and he was trying to come out to see his son, it was there they said, yes, this is the thief. And that's why they started beating the chief of the community. He was actually coming out to save his son. and he was beaten, and he was thrown inside a police van. I think he was a thief too. It's a painful incident.
Have this matter been reported to any authority, and what's the status of that?
Yeah, we have been to several offices. Even the minister itself, we have written to him. We have written to our senator, the House of Rep, the local government, and even to the office of Vice President. And yet we have not had any response. And we are just stranded. We are being left as if we are not Nigerian. Nothing.
All right. Well, let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll continue this conversation. Please stay with us.
Get latest updates on current topical issues and breaking news by downloading the TrustTV mobile app on your Android devices. Go online, click Google Play Store, search TrustTV, install the app, and get doses of unfiltered information on happenings all over the world in your pocket. TrustTV, documenting the Nigerian story.
All right, thank you for staying with us. You're watching Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. We have a studio, a victim of assault who was shot by officials of the task force, FCT Task Force Committee on City Sanitation in the studio. Shekwono Easy, he is narrating his ordeal on the day of the incident. Some of the images from that incident are quite gory. We cannot show you those pictures. But also, you should also know that we have invited officials of the task force committee on the program to come and talk about what happened on that day. We are yet to get any response from them. Now, Shekwanu Easy is narrating his ordeal. Now, what are you, or I would say rather, is there any legal effort that you are making with respect to this incident?
Yes, there is, though it's personal, because the way it is, the so-called developer, when he knows our move, he blocks it. But as it is now, I cannot really tell you that this is our plan on air. I will just keep it as personal until where the possible outcome comes out. Because I'm sure they air it now because he claims he has money, and that's how he perpetrated all this. I'm sure he will surely block the way. But I know that it's a matter of time. With due time, we shall get our victory.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Easy, for coming. We have Easy's brother also, in the studio, who was present on that day when the incident happened, and we're going to be speaking to him as well very shortly after this break. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak on Trust Television, and we have in the studio Geichaju Easy, Easy's brother, who was also present on that day when the incident happened. So could you just quickly tell us what really happened on that day?
Well, that day was terrible. Actually, I was not there from the beginning, but I came around when my friend called. My brother was shot on the neck, and I started rushing back. When I came back, the people were on the street, around the street. Everybody was out of the community, tear gas everywhere. So I could not even stand. I was trying to go in. People were holding me to stay around because they were shooting anyhow. And everybody was outside, but I insisted. I went inside the community, and I went into our house. I didn't see my dad. I didn't see everybody. Everybody was crying. And later, I went out through our gate. I saw my dad's shoes, his phone, broken phones on the floor, his cap, everything was on the floor. He was not there. And I saw some armies, they were ready to shoot because some of my parents were dragging me in because they were ready to shoot us because they had our youth pictures on their phones. Once they see youth from Lungu, they will chase you to the last until they hit you or whatever thing they want to do with you. But then, later I heard they took my dad to their van. So I was trying to look for my brother so that I can take him to the hospital. People were brutalized. They were beating both women and even a blind grandfather that we had. They were pointing gun at him and so many things like that. And then I now looked for my brother because I was not able to do anything else than to look for my brother and take him to the hospital. And it was very terrible. People were crying everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, to think that you are indigenes, baggy indigenes of the FCT, and this, is coming, have you made any move, to demand justice in some way?
Yeah, this incident, this demolition with this same man is not just this year. It has been since 2014, and since then we have been making moves and going to our leaders, even to the court. We have been to court twice, and the first one, the case was ruled out in the absence of our community, and then they came and demolished that very one. Then again we appeal. The day we were supposed to go, they came again with a bulldozer, and they did the demolition, which we were just confused. And our leaders will keep calling. Sometimes they don't pick. Sometimes even they pick, they'll be like, we are coming, we'll do something, we'll call them to come back. And this is how it has been till even today. So we are trying our best, and they are not helping us.
Okay. All right. Now, what are your demands now? What do you want? What are you demanding for?
Well, right now it's not just about Lungu, it's about FCT as well. We want the federal government to recognize us that we are here before the FCT, and we need to be treated as citizens of Nigeria as well. We deserve the respect because we are peacemakers. We welcome everybody into this city. This is not Abuja. So we need to be recognized, yes, even if let me say, maybe we are maybe at fault at some point. Maybe the federal government should consider, if we have made mistake from the beginning, then they should consider us and get us a place. If we are not okay where they are, if they are not okay with the place we are occupying, they should try and get us a place, if possible, and then we'll live in peace.
Like some form of compensation?
This form of compensation,
okay,
or resettlement.
Okay.
So.
Now let's talk about, Izzy's injury. Those pictures are really
Bad.
damning, yes, and we can really highlight that. According to the reports, we heard from people, it was quite, expensive getting to treat him and all of that. There was no money on the ground,
Yeah.
And all that. So how were you able, to raise money for his treatment and all of that?
Well, the injury was really bad. In fact, you won't believe that so many of them that saw him during that injury, they see him now, some of them think he's even dead. One of my our colleagues there, he was asking me that my brother was there. I said, no, he's still alive. So while he's still alive, yes. But we spent a lot. It was not easy, and raising the fund was not easy as well. My dad tried, and thank God there was support from the community. Even during then, we were going around to get some money around the shops, houses. They were contributing for the treatment. And thank God we were able to raise some funds for them to start the treatment. And thank God, even after the treatment, we could pay off the bills.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the program. We will continue to follow this through. We have reached out to the chairman of the committee, the Task Force Committee on City Sanitation for the FCT, for his own response and explanation on what happened. On that day, we'll continue to follow through with that. And that we just spoke with Easy Gaichaju, who is a brother to the victim, and also the victim himself, Shekwono Easy, has been on the program as well to talk about his own ordeal. With that, we'll take a break now, and then when we come back, we'll wrap up the show. Please stay with us.
Get latest up.
Well, you had it very, very sad and tragic experience there. We want to just appeal that as much as the government has a responsibility to ensure sanity in the FCT, there is need to put a human face to that.
Right.
There is need to be diplomatic. There is need to follow procedure. We cannot be arbitrary and extrajudicial in the treatment of issues. But we will continue to follow that, as we have said on the story. For now, we have come to the end of the show for today. The first segment, we also had
quite an interesting, discussion, and
Mm-hmm.
then at the last part, it was a really very sad one.
Yes, for those who have missed, you can catch up on our YouTube channel and also on our social media handles as well. My name is Ayuela.
And I'm Zainab Bala. Thank you so much for staying with us.
Bye.
See you next week.